Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for a Gnosis. Well, as my unending research goes into high level empowerment, there's always been the mystery and, to certain amounts, right in your face, superhuman abilities that have been performed by martial artists. Now, this has always come under controversy. What doesn't? You have a very evil group of people who want to keep you dumb and stupid and dependent. Unfortunately, in this world, when we become dependent on those, quote, people in the power structure, those doctors, lawyers, police, etc., you can guarantee that you're putting your life in your own hands and you will be gutted, stolen from, and left in a heap of poo. They don't give you any answers. Your doctor has no answer. Government has failed. Religion has failed, etc. And when you go to these conservative type people, that's the only way to describe them. They tend to stay with the corrupt and evil power structure, making them corrupt and evil. There certainly is unbelievable advances in what we would call the higher consciousness reality of humans, frighteningly so. Why do we really have so much control in the world? Why are there certain individuals who in no way are greatly spiritual? They are not all that bright. They are not people with high degrees. They could be living in a cave and yet they're able to do basically what we would consider higher levels of empowerment. Now, when we start calling these things superpowers and other things, the supernatural, well, we're taking it out of the natural. This is natural. You've been disempowered deliberately. That's how this world works. You're nothing more than a consumer for them to use you up and throw you away when your productive years are over with. You feed their systems. They steal all your money in the hospitals. They abuse you in whatever job you're at. It goes on and on. And the biggest lie of all is telling you that there is nothing beyond the common low-level things we see in life. If any of that is common and low-level, it's your interpretation of a lot of things. And there are organized, fanatical groups of people like Penn and Teller and all the theatrical magicians who have no idea. Penn didn't even graduate from high school, by the way. So, and he wants to write books on philosophy and everything else. He's a trickster, and he's made hundreds of millions of dollars tricking you because of the blatant fascination of how they can trick your eye. But there's no intelligence here, and intelligence doesn't come from education. The most educated, the most PhD types I found are the stupidest, and they have no analytical abilities. What they are is propaganda agents, which is the reason why I'm glad I really never continued with or finished any kind of higher education from traditional schools, because they have nothing to offer me. What they offer you is brainwashing. They're going to tell you what they know and tell you this is fact when it doesn't work and achieves nothing. I don't really care what cancer is. I want to know how to cure it. So this is the way that we run into these things out there, and we can't. The more you get involved in the dogma, the more you will lose. And now that we're kind of in an information age, the game has changed. You're going to get 40 different stories from so-called credible people that say the exact opposite of the other credible person. So this is a book, and of course this author, Alex Cosma, who is a Brit, and he is still alive, and I don't know if he has courses in London or not, but he's in London. He's written about 6 or 7 books. They're all very difficult to get. This book here by him is fairly easy to get, as is Esoteric Warrior. These two are books you can pick up. They've been out of print for 10 or 15 years, but they are readily available. He has written other books on different martial arts systems. I don't know how esoteric they are, but that's what his basic field of interest is. And so you have all this readily available in front of you. Now, I don't believe, you have to be very careful of story makers, people that want to tell you stories to make themselves rich or to make themselves look special. And many internal martial artists, particularly those that have been filmed, have put on magic tricks as well as doing feats of chi. But it just shows you, and none of these people, and I've spoken to a lot of these kind of energy people, particularly acupuncturists and a certain amount or number of martial artists in the Los Angeles area, which is known for its Asian community. But you got to remember that nobody teaches the whitey man. These are secrets. They've been kept and they will continue to be kept. Apparently, people like Alex here can go over into Asia. And this talks about the internal martial arts traditions of China, Japan, and Southeast Asia. So this is a very good book covering all that. And what I like is that these are not books talking about theory. He went there, he saw the people in action, he has photographs of many of these masters, and that's pretty cool to have as well. You can get a book like this and make a photocopy of that person, and you can try to psychically connect to them and connect to their stream of empowerment so that you yourself can learn these traditions better or even access their energy to a certain degree. These are advanced techniques that manifesting sciences have been doing for years and is developing into even more a powerful technique as the technology catches up with the desires we all have. Because technology has always fallen way behind the desires that we have as humans. But one thing we have to fully understand, and I'm going to get into the unique aspect that has not been covered and only he's talked about it. And that is possession and spirit attack while doing martial arts. Now, I've never heard of this before. He's the only one that has brought this up and put it in a book that he published. And again, you're not going to get a lot of this stuff. You got to remember there's a wall of privacy always in every single tradition. A great stock trader generally is not going to give you his techniques. Anybody that knows something to a high level is only going to teach you to a certain level. This is even more obvious in Asian traditions, which tend to be family oriented and passed down through the generations. But it's also done pretty much in everything else. Anything that is out there that is special, that is secretive, whether it's the Masons, even the Mormons have their little secrets that they don't want to talk about, they're not going to share it with the uninitiated. To a certain extent, I do understand this. It vulgarizes whatever practice you have. Give it to the stooge, the guy who's watching cartoons or playing samurai somewhere. You want to give information to that guy? Well, I'm not sure it hurts anything because all practices that are powerful take a lot of work, practice, and dedication and can cost you a lot of money to own different technologies. But, there are people out there that live in a fantasy world. I knew one of these really low-life scum who was into Dragon Ball Z. Probably one of the worst animated shows there are. I'm not sure about the content, but certainly the animation was very poor. And it's still pretty popular out there with that. But he thought this was some sort of martial arts specialty thing. But there does seem to be a common problem with martial artists getting attacked by spirits and also becoming possessed. Now, in The Esoteric Warrior, which I reviewed not too long ago by the same author, and I haven't fully read this book, and I'll make another review on this book once I finish it, he was the first one to come out and talk about how he knew people and how he himself became possessed by an evil spirit. And how many different phenomena happened when they were out practicing martial arts, even a small group, that frightened the hell out of a whole bunch of people, including an associate of his, who was then had these spiritual phenomena happen to them and became terrorized by it. Well, you're terrorized by it because you don't understand what's happening, and you see these things as something that is horrible, difficult, and dangerous. Well, these things are not necessarily pleasant, since we've been so turned off to it and we've been brainwashed in the last 20 years that basically evil wins. And of course, that was part of the plan for a long time. This was perpetrated in films like The Exorcist, of course, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, a fantastic film with Richard Burton, I highly recommend, talks about the struggle between good and evil and being touched by the wings of the locusts, which our entire society is possessed by the locus factor of evil. But that's for another video. These are very highbrow. I'm not sure too many people quite understand all these things out there. But I don't dumb down my stuff for the local mocals that watch Goofball Tube. And of course, those aren't my watchers, obviously. Obviously, if you're here watching this, there's something special about you, and you are being given a path to a great deal of empowerment and enlightenment if you follow it. So as we get involved in these, I was unaware this was something that was happening to martial artists. And I'm not surprised a bit. And you got to remember that there's a major spiritual aspect to everything, and that spirit energies are a unique form of energy unto themselves. I've been researching this for years, and while you want to go down in the basic understanding of the universe is that everything is an energetic informational field, this is true, but there are types of energetic informational fields, and spirit energies are a unique form unto themselves and require unique equipment and unique ways of dealing with them. This will be covered in my advanced practices and videos in the future. And of course, I'm putting together a complete course on all these things. Next year will be my big writing year. While I've been in this field for 55 years, researching everything, and pretty much the expert in manifesting machines, radionics, psionics, etc. On the planet, and have been for over 40 years. I've been a person who has had the only radionic retail store in the history of the world. I've engineered, I've built, I've sold, and I'm an author of over 25 books, 5 courses, and hundreds of articles. While these things, and many of my books, and if you go onto Amazon and put in Dr. Thor Templar, you will find many of my books listed there. I have not written books, or at least I have an old course I'm going to publish on psychotronics soon, but that's another issue. But let's get back to this issue before I diverge too much. Well, isn't this interesting? Now, when he brought this up to his teacher, Sensei, may have big problems, spirit come thump my head. What do this, Sensei? And the Sensei said, this is very common. What? Whoa. Now, we understand there's, again, everything in life has a different level. Your average martial artist in the United States is nothing more than a gym rat who wants to hurt people. So they learn skills to beat people. They're usually fearful people, and they learn martial arts to either defend themselves because they're being victimized, or they want to victimize others. They are very low-level people in general. They are bottom feeders, as the martial arts industry is, as with most of the bodybuilders and stuff. You know, these people who live in gyms and don't really have any form of support or anything. So these are the things that happen with you. Now, martial arts is the same way. After Kung Fu came out and was very popular, and I was getting into the more metaphysical things, I went around the Los Angeles area. And of course, I did meet and have a few lessons with Chuck Norris. Who else did I go to? Steven Seagal. I went and talked with him, who had a studio at that time. And many other people that were known in the industry. Checked out Kung Fu in particular, which is a horrendous thing to learn. Spent a few years learning Taekwondo, which is basically considered just a punching and kicking. But of course, Taekwondo has very high aspects as well. But nobody had any information. They weren't interested in it. And the fact is that, you know, like all types of stereotypes, if you think that the Asians are somehow mystical and spiritual people, more than you are, well, that is just not true. You got to remember, martial arts and chi energy is their baseball. So everybody knows it, everybody does it, and it's as simple as that. So I couldn't find anybody that really knew anything. And whatever they did know, they weren't interested talking to you unless you paid them a lot of money and spent years training with them. Now, I understand that. Again, to a degree, but everything in life becomes a whitewash. You treat everybody the same, and you don't want to be bothered with people because basically people are bad losers that want to basically vampire you, steal what you have, and leave you with nothing. All of this is part of the process that is life in general. So it's very difficult to find this. Now, apparently, if you go to Asia to a well-known teacher and you show up there, well, I'm assuming they would be impressed by this, and they're not going to be seeing that many particular Westerners there. I've also read extensively about the Shaolin temples and all these other things, and that's another mishmash of nonsense, and Kung Fu in general. And most of these schools, and there is a humongous Shaolin or Kung Fu school in China, and like everything in China, because they have 1.5 billion people, they have like 5,000 or 6,000 people show up someplace and they're teaching them that. And they teach them like a military procession. That's how they teach you. This has been something that's turned me off for all of my life. I'm not interested in learning in a military type way. If I wanted to do that, I would join the military. I wanted something a little more in depth than that and something. You know, it's the mentality of your average bogus scumbucket gym teacher that we've all run into. These low-level bottom feeder scum that every gym teacher on this planet is. So, I mean, that's all there is. Now, finding it out, and you have to go to schools, and a lot of them wouldn't even watch you. One school wouldn't even, Ed Parker's school wouldn't even let you watch the training. They thought that was, you know, like watching a couple of classes. Oh, you're going to know too much. So all of this stuff is nonsense. Of course, Ed Parker is another one of a long list of failures who died very young. He used to eat like a hog, so I understand. And I'm going to be doing another video on all these people who have disappointed us over the years. And the list is so long, there's virtually nobody that has fulfilled what they say they were doing. So the case of this, so what happened is that he got possessed himself personally. Again, what I like about this author, he's gone there and done it. He's worked with these masters. He has their pictures there. He tells you how they work. Really fascinating. This is the kind of treasure we're all looking for. Now, the problem is individual books are one person's personal experience. Can you repeat that? Well, I don't know. This is the other problem. Life becomes very independent. It's not what it does for everybody else. And if it works for everybody else and doesn't work for you, it has no value. The only thing that's value in your life is what works for you. So this is the problem involved. But he was with several people that he was working out. And in one instance, he was working out in a little forest. And all of a sudden, these spirits attacked him. And they screamed and yelled at them in a frightening manner, of course. And they started running, of course. What do you do when you're well, you're a martial artist. What do? You run. You don't meditate and ask for guidance from the great Buddha. So they ran and ran, and these spirits kept chasing them. Eventually, they left them alone, but needless to say, this left a permanent scar on them because they didn't understand what the real world was about. We live in a fantasy world where people are brought up, particularly people in white middle class who think the world is a fantasy, like the Mormons and so many other people that have a pampered lifestyle where they never see anything. You know, like all the Swedes and the Norwegians and the Finnish. Yeah, we've never seen violence in our lives. We don't know. We're just dumb idiots. Everybody protects us because we're neutral. We don't fight. We're cowards. So our ancestors thought they murdered people just for fun and to steal. Oh, the Vikings. So the whole idea is that we have all these things we have to understand. And of course, you're never going to be taught that by anything. You're living in an urban legend. Now, so they chased him and everything else. And this, of course, left a permanent scar, particularly on this other guy who was never the same afterwards. And apparently this has happened several times where spirits and other things even came to the point of attacking them, hitting them, pushing them down. Whoa. Well, as I said, I'm not surprised, but I've never heard anybody talk about this before. This is just like the amazing touch knockdowns. Now, like everything else in life, it's 100% real. The problem is that the people that document this are very bad at it, and they're very bad people. The entire planet is full of bad people. Media people, you think media is something special? You think a reporter is something special? He isn't worried about sex and money and fame? Come on. I've met many reporters, work with the BBC and CNN. God, are these people terrible, as well as working with producers and so forth. Of course, all the bad films or the failures are hoisted on a flag post and seen everywhere, like the failure of Bozo George Dillman, who was filmed by National Geographic, and where they wanted to make entertainment. And of course, he didn't fail. He made sure he had an instructor of his fail. This again shows you a serious problem. But the point is that that doesn't prove anything, and a real investigative team would have filmed many different people trying this, not one person that fails and they walk away. And then George Dillman, being the kind of ignoramus, low-class slob that he is, then talked himself into a hole of stupidity, claiming all sorts of stuff of why it didn't work, which shows you how stupid he is in general. Even though he is a proficient martial artist, apparently, in the Hall of Fame, and noted as being one by Black Belt magazine, if that has any credibility. So the whole idea is we look at that. So he got possessed here, and this spirit entered him, and he felt horrible, and he couldn't move, and he felt like he was dying. And they called upon a local, and this was in Asia somewhere, a local Christian minister to come and help him. Well, can we tell you what happened there? Anybody got a guess? You think that helped? Well, of course not. It didn't work, and the inferiority of that particular form of Christianity as it is practiced today couldn't be. There's nothing there. Certainly ancient forms where people were more Gnostic Christians and who followed the higher guidance as certain orders of the Templars, etc. did, you have a much higher level there. But in general, they had to bring in a local Buddhist who was familiar with that. Of course, they're familiar with that spirit, but this happens a lot. Christians really can't exercise hardly any of the spirits, and particularly if they're from Asia and South America, which most exorcists say they cannot exorcise a South American demon. Probably true with Asia as well, but we don't know of too many coming from there, but certainly we have a lot of these cases. And most of your major exorcists have said this in writing and everything else. So they brought in this person. They were able to release the spirit from him. Well, this is pretty fascinating, isn't it, people? The fact is, all of this stuff is real. The hitting without touching at a distance, and he documents this throughout all of his books, in this book as well. He talks about it. We've had this filmed in different ways, and it doesn't have to be. And what I always did when I asked Tibetans at one meeting I went to who were teaching the rainbow body of ascension at the time of death, I said, well, do you have to be a Tibetan to have this work for you and understand it? And the Tibetan told me, well, death is universal, so it is not something that you have to be there. So, and we also know that there has been, particularly Guy Savali, the famous martial artist who was killed by COVID, apparently, a few years ago, died from that. We have documented videos where he worked with the Green Berets at Fort Bragg. This isn't some goofball little army guy. These are professionals who were so impressed that they made sure they spoke him up and demonstrated what they were taught. And none of this was taught through doing physical activities. It was strictly a mental state. Now, I'm always trying to find this guy who did a whole series going around the world, a British guy, and it's probably been about 30 or 40 years, going to different chi masters, and he demonstrated all these different things where they showed their high-level stream abilities. But Guy Savali, who was an American Italian, instead of accessing the power from some Buddha or some other type of God form of Asian or whatever, he used Christ energy to channel in this, and it worked for him. So again, it's not dependent on your belief system in some special or regional or country-based God. The well-known hex masters from the Pennsylvania Dutch, which is quite fascinating, used in modern times the use of what is now the popular god form, Christianity. Before that, and they have stated, they were using the old Scandinavian type god forms, Thor, Odin, etc., and getting the same results. So they're calling on this higher power, which I guess we could call universal to a degree. So the whole idea is this higher energy that you want to name based on your cultural understanding of it. Just like most Christians think that Jesus looked like some European, when he obviously was a short Jewish guy. Jesus was Jewish, he was a rabbi. He certainly didn't look like what we consider Western Europeans. But everybody wants to make pictures of God looking like them. And of course, this is around the world. So in Asia, you'll have Asian gods. So all of the things that go with that are the reality that we need to embrace. But all of this is true. The psychic surgeons. Now again, this has been proven. One of the problems is a lot of this work was done by Andrei Pisarek in the 60s, etc. And he even regretted the fact that he left Brazil when he should have stayed down there and documented it. One of the problems, particularly when you get back even as early as the 90s, photography wasn't that easy. It was very expensive to get movie cameras and other things, and the quality was bad. Now we have basically what would be a $6,000 camera in 1980 you have in your cell phone, which takes fantastic photos, and you don't even have to spend any money. And these are all the things that people don't understand even about photography, where the fact is that people used to have the photo mats, 1 hour photo. People would take pictures and then they wanted them quickly. And of course, the revival of the Polaroid in this day and age, people want it and they want it now. But people used to take pictures, go there, and you'd come back in a couple hours and they would have the film developed for you, or it would even be a day or so. There was 1 hour photo mats and other things. And some people made a fortune at that. But you can see the difficulties in that. And cameras didn't work all that well. It was very much something you had to study, getting 35 millimeter and knowing how to use it and everything else. And the capacity to take pictures of odd things was always difficult because of exposure problems. This is no longer the case. But we can see even today with all the cameras, we seem to have very few photographs of spirits, entities, and extraterrestrials. Yet people claim they're everywhere. But we have no photographs to speak of, or at least very few. We still do have photographs that are captured on things from security cameras. I have several of these on this particular channel, where there's even shown an entity that went up and rang somebody's doorbell. A friend of mine's family, this happened to them. Well, this is pretty amazing. And there's proof of it. You see the ball going there. And why would they hit the doorbell? This is bizarre. So these are very, very real. And anybody who wants to state that that's the real reality, you're living in the fake reality. A fake reality that lies to you, brings you pain, and makes you reincarnate back into the same sewer society that you came from. So, the fact is this Buddhist came in and exorcised him, and ever since that procedure, he has been fine. But this is the first time I've heard of any of this, and I've been studying this field for a long time. So it just shows you. And of course, now we're into more internal, and that's internal martial arts, and there's many, many books on it. It's a very complicated and difficult subject matter, and there are people who've went into great in-depth on how this works, what energies you're using, what postures to change yourself, but some of them didn't do it. Guy Savali's technique was a simple little mental technique. They weren't punching trees, they weren't meditating for hours. It was a simple little technique, and he demonstrated it on film by a credible special forces. And whatever you think of the special forces, I don't know why they would possibly lie for this guy. There was no benefit to it. They weren't making any money from it. They did it because his system worked and they wanted to verify this. So the bottom line is that this is mind-blowing, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of similar pictures out there and photographs. The problem is they're not put in one area and showed to people. So we certainly know, and Guy Savali, of course, worked with the CIA and other things at the time of the big psychic work that was being done. He was the big guy, one of them, behind all this that got probably the least credit. There are other ones that claim to have been great psychics and everything else, and all of this has been documented. It's on film, and it wasn't released because of secrecy until recently. The same thing with Uri Geller. Now, Uri Geller wanted to make money, and rightfully so. So he played some games and did real psychic stuff and did some magic tricks as well. So what? You know, people like Penn and Teller are worth $150 million each. For what? For tricking you? Basically slapping you in the face and kicking you in the crotch, and then taking your money? What a sucker you are. So this is the kind of things that we run into that we have to look at. But it's very interesting that the phenomena that people practicing martial arts, particularly the internal arts, are attacked by spirits. This makes sense to me in a spiritual reality as well. Of course, the spirit world and the world in general is trying to stop your personal empowerment. The fact that if you are doing these internal exercises and you're stimulating and opening your chakras, to a certain extent, you're going to be attracting spirits, higher and lower. But it's very interesting that this is a fact. Yes, the Philippine psychic surgeons, they are real. At least some are. You guys remember that there's always frauds that come out when they smell the dough. So you're going to get credible people that are put to shame by people who go there and play the game to make money off of you. And this, of course, is the case with almost everything. And there certainly isn't any credibility in any other form of anything from the West. The doctors that promise you to save your life and can't, that leave you $1 million bill, all the things that go on here. That's credibility? Well, not in my book. So the whole idea is these are all con artists that aren't telling you the facts, and the fact is you got a snowball's chance in hell of surviving by what anything that modern medicine does. So we move into these areas and we have to understand the realities that are out there. But the fact is that it's very interesting that there's a whole spiritual connection here, and some of these abilities and some of the abilities that you trick in yourself, that you are able to activate in yourself, I should say, may come from spiritual help. And like everything in life, we are spiritual entities, and there are good and bad of everything. But it is fascinating that this is true. But all of this is true, and they have been filmed, etc. Andrei Pisharik, another person who did great psychic research and everything else, spent some time with the Rusty Nice surgeon of Brazil, and he had some sort of tumor growing in his arm. This surgeon, who was a mailman in the daytime, and in the nighttime he did this psychic surgery, claiming that a spirit, a medical spirit was in him that told him what to do. But it's even more than that. He's not being guided to do medical procedures that are normal. He did do surgery. Andrei Pisharik had this growth, I guess it was not cancerous, but a growth in his arm, and this psychic surgeon removed it without any blood or anything else, and he kept it on a jar on his desk. What are we to make of this? Pisharik witnessed him going in and doing eye surgery and other surgeries, and without any blood. They would pull diseased organs out of the body, or diseased, growths and other things. Not organs, but this is an established fact. So did the Filipino surgeons, or at least some of them. The problem is, since everybody is evil and has no credibility, you're going to get a lot of people masquerading as having power that don't. And it's as simple as that. But it's always buyer beware. And as I said, we have better guarantees from your local doctor that can't even figure out how to take care of blood sugar. They can't figure out how to cure that. They can't cure dandruff. They can't cure acne. They can't cure anything. So you're getting a deal there because he's got a little certificate on his wall that says he's a dumb idiot who's been brainwashed. And we all, of course, come to a point in our lives where we've given up our healing or afraid to do it. And we turn over our power to these people who basically assist the process of getting it. It's right down, as far as I'm concerned, it's indirect, and sometimes, often, it is direct murder. So this is what we run into with everything, and we have to seek what's really going on out there, which is quite a bit different than we have been told is the reality. And we have all these people that have endless funds, these dumb bunkers who produce nothing but criticize and attack everyone. It's crimes against humanity. They are stopping the growth of human potential by limiting us to a fake and bogus science created 500 years ago and then further corrupted by the boob Einstein, who put all sorts of locks on different scientific physics so that we could never get anywhere. And all of his science has been proven bogus. And he was set up to push an agenda by the people behind him. The evil controllers of this world were all behind old Einstein, and nothing he ever did was worth a damn. Not only that, his theories were known hundreds of years before. He rewrote them into a few pages, and then everybody gave him a pat on the back. Why? Well, they did that to push the agenda of the German Arabs to take over science and exploit you. So the whole idea is we have to understand all those things that this world is going into. But this is a very mysterious world. And I'm assuming somebody could go around and start filming all these things, but would that do anything? Now, a lot of it has been filmed, but the whole idea is, would that do anything? And again, how do you film somebody who's been possessed by a spirit and then a person who has had that spirit removed? Well, I don't look too good on film. There's no way to really prove it. Well, it's all in your head. You're a mental case. Isn't that what they tell you about everything? So, we got to tell all the doctors that, it's just kind of in your mind. We don't got to pay your bills. This is a fantasy, your little $100,000 bill. So this is all the reality that we have to look at and understand. But this is 100% real. All of these things are real, and you have a bunch of people who don't believe it because they're listening to the brainwashed media that wants to keep you as a victim, and that's what it's all about. And we continue to have this disinformation campaign that goes on endlessly on social media, where one gossip after another perpetrated by people that want to sell products, particularly supplements, when these supplements do little to nothing. And they have plenty of bogus scientific paid off researchers coming out with results that are not real. And everybody's repeating them because they're making money off of it. Plain and simple. But if anybody doubts any of this stuff, if people doubt what is called empty force, where you can throw your punch at a distance, doesn't know anything. This guy has stated on many occasions he went to masters and they would sit 5 feet away from him. They would wave their hand at them and he could feel the energy go to them. He saw people cured one after the other that had terrible illnesses. This is just one guy, and there are many others. And to believe in the garbage that is given to you in the media, like National Geographic, who did a horrible documentary on George Dillman. And of course, is that the end of the story? One little goofball from Pennsylvania, Georgie? One little guy from Pennsylvania who's written a lot of bogus books. And pretty much you find the people who write lots of books and stuff, they probably don't have any power. All these noted authors you have to be very careful of. So the whole idea is, what does that mean? It proves absolutely nothing. That's not research. That means one person who claims they could do it couldn't do it, and he didn't even do it himself, which is a faulty. If I was the producer there and running that operation, I would have demanded him on film that we want you personally to demonstrate this. Obviously, your underling here has failed. Why didn't he want to demonstrate? Well, the only reason he didn't want to demonstrate is because he would have failed. And we have this from radionic practitioners. We have this from a long group of healers. Christopher Hills, who knew everybody and had this great spirulina, he died from apparently some sort of virus they claim that he got. Well, I don't know. It's also the time of AIDS. We have no idea. Now, most people don't know him because it's years ago, but he was heavily connected to the Tibetans, the Indians. He was heavily connected to alternative healing, particularly radionic practitioners. He didn't survive. What are we to make of all this? So we have to be very careful with all these people. But the bottom line is that we cannot believe the naysayers. We need definitive work done where we go out and we prove these people and they go through tests. But the problem with all these tests, just like SRI's tests, that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, made it a fact